Yo everyone, the last weekend was crazy in terms of offline Smash. We had Ultimate Fighting Arena 2022, short UFA in Europe and Pod Priority in the US. Both were a great watch. In this video however, I only want to talk about UFA. I don't think I will do a video on Pod Priority, but if you really want one, let me know in the comments and maybe I can make it in time before the Pokemon release date. So let's talk about UFA and what made it so great to watch. With 1,500 entrants across all games and 570 competitors for Smash Ultimate alone, UFA was one of Europe's biggest tournaments of the year. I don't know if it was the biggest one, but it is definitely up there. And in a lot of ways, it also felt like the ultimate European fighting arena, with talents from all over Europe such as Glutonny, Leon, Raflo, Orion and Flo from France, Bloom4Eva and SBF from the UK, Siski and Tropt from Spain, Mr. R and Space from the Netherlands and Tarek and Longo from Germany. But we also got to see some of our favorite international players on the European stage, with Jake from the US, Mexico's Jack and Big Boss, Canada's Z, and also two Japanese players, namely T and Hikaru. The later two really played for the crowd this tournament, and it was a pleasure to watch them play. I even have to admit that I did enjoy watching T's Kazuya at times. Besides all these hype competitors, the venue looked amazing, the commentary was great, the crowd was hype, and all in all, the whole production value seemed insane. UFA had so many hype sets that it is actually hard for me to only select and talk about a few. For example, I really liked Rambos vs OJ, which on paper might sound like a very boring matchup, Samus vs Captain Falcon, but it feels like two archetypes that couldn't be more different clash together and they create this really hype tension. In any case, I really liked the set, both players played great, but OJ clutched it out with a down tilt that set Rambos in a really weird angle into the blast zone. Anyways, let's start with the first highlight set of our list, Space vs Jake. Space is usually known for his Inkling, but in this set he played Aegis, which makes sense against Steve. The first game started on PS2. Space was great at calling out Jake's landings and grab attempts and ended the game with a 2-stock. For game 2 they agreed to rematch on PS2. Jake was in the lead most of the game, but towards the end Space was about to reverse the situation. He had Jake in a juggle situation, but missed one up air and got punished with a diamond back air for it and lost the game. For game 3 Jake offered to go back to PS2, but Space had other plans. He wanted to go to town. However, at first his plan didn't work out in his favor at all. When Space was on his last stock, Jake was all set up with diamond, gold and a newly built blockhouse around him as his defense. But something clicked for Space and he turned up. He got the first stock catching Jake's landing with an up tilt. Jake respawned, crafted his diamond axe, but then out of nowhere Space just 0 to death Jake. With a well-timed and spaced Mythra F-smash, he called out his recovery, and all of a sudden, it was even again. Jake gets a jab, which leads to him carrying Space offstage, nearly killing him with a gold fair. However, with the Mythra side B, Space is able to recover high and get back on stage. Jake is now low on materials, but Space is always in his face, threatening him. When Space had Jake offstage, he called out a minecart towards stage by Jake, punished accordingly, and closed out game 3. If you look at the player cam, Jake seems visibly annoyed. The last game seemed to be his to take, but Space clutched it out. Now it's game 4 and Space is about to take the set. With each hit Space got on Jake, his anger over the last game seemed to reignite. And even though the game ended in a last hit scenario, it seemed like Space had won the mental game of the set long ago. He popped off and earned his well-deserved win. I also want to mention that Space got top 8 in both Ultimate and Guilty Gear Strive. To juggle 2 games at one event and a stacked one as well is an accomplishment of its own that I feel like deserves to be mentioned here. Now the next 3 sets that I want to highlight all feature Glutonny, so I hope you like Wario gameplay. For people new to competitive Smash and the European scene, Glutonny has been the #1 player in Europe for the longest time, but recently Europe and especially the French scene have leveled up. Still, whenever there's a European tournament, Glutonny is a protagonist of the story, and viewers and competitors alike ask themselves, can he do it again? Will he win as usual? So let's start with Gluto vs Hikaru in winners quarters. It's a top 8 qualifier set. I don't think they have ever played each other before the set, but Hikaru started the set with his Roy. Glutonny played Wario as usual. And Gluto quickly showed Hikaru to put the Roy away by ending the game with a jab block into Waft. 2 stocks left on Gluto. It's Town and City for the next game, and Hikaru switched to his DK. The game starts quite even, but Glutonny oftentimes pushes his advantage a bit too far. On his last stock, he's able to juggle Hikaru's DK quite a bit, but in the end decides to go for a risky up B, which leads to his death. In game 3, Gluto answered back in quite the dominant fashion. He's able to keep advantage much better and finds kills even without the use of Warp. For game 4, they went to Hollow Bastion, a stage that DK players like due to the big middle platform that assists when trying to kill opponents with the so-called ding-dong combo. Most of the game was a back and forth between the two, but again they end up in a last hit situation. Hikaru lands aggressively on stage with a side B, but missed his up smash punish. Gluto gets back to ledge, probably misinputs a get up attack and gets punished with the game for it. It's game 5. Gluto wants back to town. It's the stage where Gluto was able to 2-stock Hikaru without using Warp. Hikaru finds tons of up airs on Gluto in the first stock and also finds the first kill, but ultimately ends up on 1 stock with Gluto on 2 and having Warp close to ready. Hikaru gets a grab on Gluto beneath the middle platform of town, but it's not quite enough for Ding Dong to kill yet. He retreats to the top right platform. Gluto tries to shield pressure him with a cross up air, but Hikaru finds a grab and kills him for the attempt. It's back to even. Gluto finds a rising nair but can't do the full combo. He fishes for an up tilt and gets it but doesn't pull the trigger somehow. Instead, he spot dodges, probably a misinput. He gets another up tilt, goes for Warp, but he doesn't get the strong hit of Warp and Hikaru lives another day. Hikaru immediately gets a grab on Gluto, goes for Ding Dong, but Wario is heavy enough to survive as well. With an F tilt at ledge, Hikaru kills Glutonny. He pop-offs like Donkey Kong would do if he won the set. The crowd erupts. A DK player just beat the best player from Europe. Next on our list is Gluto vs Bloom for loser semis. Seeding wise, this set was the predicted winners finals, but if you ask me, the seeding was kinda weird in that case. I mean, I don't think T has ever lost a single tourney he has attended in Europe so far, but anyways. So far, Bloom is 3-0 up in sets on Gluto. He seems to struggle quite a lot versus the British Bayo player. Apparently, due to a hand condition, Gluto also has a hard time SDIing as much as he needs in this matchup. And we Smash 4 players can definitely understand this struggle. But let's have a look at how he did. In the first game, Gluto already looked a lot better than in their previous meetings. He was able to win the game by intercepting Bloom's way to ledge with the Waft. However, it's worth noting that Bloom also SD'd on the second stock, despite being already high in percent. The second game was a runback on PS2. However, the game didn't look like a runback at all. Gluto was literally dominating the game. He was so good at air dodging out of possible combos, and he took the second stock with a half waft and the third with a down throw into bike combo. This was not the outcome that we expected, and also Bloom was not unfazed by these events. He quickly changed to Joker and barely squeezed out the win. Most of the time, however, Gluto was in charge of the game, and Bloom noticed that too and switched back to his Bayo for game 4. And it paid off. He 2-stocked Gluto. It's game 5. Gluto lost his first stock for getting desperate and trying to up smash Bloom. He punished the attempt with a forward smash of his own. However, throughout the whole match, Gluto shows clever positioning of his bike. He oftentimes throws the bike on one of the PS2 platforms so that if Bloom afterburner kicks from ledge or in neutral, he may suffer from more hit lag due to the bike extending it, and is therefore able to punish it. Nonetheless, Bloom kept it close. When Gluto lost his second stock and came back on stage, Bloom is able to catch Gluto with a down tilt, leading into a forward air train to carry him off stage, into an afterburner kick, but Gluto made it out safe.
You're kidding me! But it's only the late hit dash attack. You're kidding me! He goes for it. He goes for it. Is that going to be an air dodge? Oh my god!
Unlike all the other times where he landed with an air dodge, Gluto landed aggressively with a down air and clutched out this nail biter of his set. Our last set is Gluto vs T. It's Grand Finals. I kinda feel like you have to highlight Grand Finals when you talk about a tournament, and this set, despite having Kazuya in it, was actually hype as fuck. For game 1, we had T on Pac-Man. The last few times these two have played, T's Pac-Man has given Gluto a lot of trouble. But this time around, Gluto showed that he studied the matchup by using a lot of matchup specific tricks, like using up B versus Hydrant and generally playing a more defensive and patient playstyle. And even though game 1 ended relatively close and with T SDing, T decided to go Kazuya for game 2. T, the madman, even tried to style on Gluto with a footstool combo in this game, but in the end lost to Gluto parrying Electric Wind God Fist near ledge and getting an up tilt waft confirm as a result. Gluto is 2-0 up on the Japanese player who has not yet lost a single set versus the French Extraordinaire. The beginning of game 3 on the other hand looked very different. T was quickly able to delete 2 of Gluto's stocks. Gluto still made a good comeback but fell short in the end. Game 4 was not different. Gluto was always on the back foot and had to make up the deficit that was caused by T hitting his deadly Electric Wind God Fist combos again and again. Game 5 was yet another game on Town and City. Gluto lost his first stock by barely dropping his shield and getting hit by Electric Wind God Fist. He then proceeded to pressure T near the ledge with his hitboxes and bike at hand. T retreated to one of the outer platforms, but Gluto is ready and killed him off of bite. T then, however, catch Gluto's landing with an Electric Wind God Fist. Gluto tried to stall out his respawn invincibility and wanted to get back to center stage. As usual, he pays with his stock for it, and Gluto is now nearly a full stock down. He has T off stage and waft ready. T likewise has his rage drive on deck.
Get KO'd at any second, Dara! Oh no way! And now gonna be using his own bike against him off stage! What's been no!
Grand Finals is over, and T just won another European major without dropping a set. I want to mention again that there were many more great sets to watch, like the rematch of Gluto and Hikaru in Losers Finals, or T vs Streaks quite early in the bracket, or of course the winners final between T and Hikaru, to name a few. So I can only recommend to you guys to check out the UFA playlist on YouTube. And of course, watching these tournaments live is much more exciting than watching the recorded sets, so definitely try to catch the next one live if you can. Apex and Tech Republic are just around the corner, by the way. I hope you all enjoyed the video. I think for a tournament review this was a bit too detailed, but I didn't want to redo the whole thing. I still hope to see you guys in the next one. Peace.